Welcome back. We continue live right here at Pittsburgh CW. Join us tonight at 11 o'clock. Rich Walsh will talk to Jamison Tyone. Talked about him as the ace of the staff, and he's also a man who's very much interested in what's going on with the free agent situation with guys like Manny Machado and Bryce Harper. Still do not have contracts, and here we are starting spring training. Both those guys are really in the primes of their careers. This is not like a 35-year-old who's going to get a 7-year contract. This is a 26-year-old, both of them. However, before I start feeling badly for all of these guys who can't get a contract and say the owners are colluding, I will say this. Bryce Harper had a $300 million offer to him by Washington. 10 years, $30 million a year, and he turned it down because he thought he can get $400 million. So it sounds to me like you're getting greedy, and you're going to pay the price, because I don't think there's going to be another team that offers even $300, if at all, close to that. So we'll see what happens at 412-575-2600. So we're talking Pirates, we're talking Penguins, we're talking Steelers, and we're talking with you. Give us a call at 412-575-2600, as Gil has done in Allegheny Township. Are you, Gil?
Yeah, I'm here.
What's up, Gil? How are you?
Well, I would transition, Bill, and I would keep Brown until somebody wants to give us something for him. Then if he doesn't come to practice, we bench him, we don't dress him, we don't pay him.
So you would be willing to just have him around and discipline him and not get anything of value for him and take a hardline stand. That doesn't really help your team, though, does it?
It does. If somebody wants him, they make a good deal, we'll deal. But if nobody wants him, why give him away, make him play?
Okay, I get that. I hear that, and I think, bottom line is, at some point they're going to want to make a deal. You have to do it before we get into March, because he's due a $2 million bonus at that point, and once you pay it, you're not getting it back. So I think they want to have their minds made up at that point, and at this point it looks like they're going to trade him. The problem is, what do you get? Now, if I'm looking at landing spots for him, I think it's a limited field because, number one, you're bringing on a guy who has some issues right now, it appears. Number two, he's a guy who wants a new contract, which is unrealistic. He has 3 years left at a certain amount of money, and I don't believe any team wants to redo him at age 31. But he's also 115 catches a year, 1,700 yards, whatever, 15 touchdowns. Some teams want that. And teams like the Oakland Raiders, that's one of the teams I mentioned way at the beginning of this process, just because of what they have to give. They're going to play one more year out there and then move to Vegas. And you know what? They need star power. They need a guy who might attract attention. Can they reel him in? John Gruden likes star athletes, likes big names. They have a lot of draft picks available to them. Maybe they'd be willing to give one or two up to the Steelers. And so I would stand pat until I see that. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Steelers have played this very smartly. They haven't said anything badly about Antonio Brown. They're just doing their business, standing pat, waiting and hearing. And somebody, you would hope, would make them an offer that they can deal with. But at this point, it has not happened. And he's been out there for a couple of weeks, and people know the deal with him. 412-575-2600. Dan in Lower Borough, you're up. What's up, Dan?
Hey, Bob, first-time caller. I like your suit. I'm Italian. I appreciate quality.
You're very nice. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I've been trying to get through for months. I can never get through. What happened to Mike Tomlin?
Insofar as what?
He was different when he came here. Remember how he was? How he said he was going to win 5 Super Bowl trophies, and he was going to do this.
I don't know that. I don't know that he
play.
actually said. I don't think he said that. Did he? 5 Super Bowl trophies? That would be very difficult for a young rookie coach to come in and say that.
But anyways, I remember him pushing the players and being tough on them. He told everyone he wasn't their friend. He was their coach, and it seems like he just changed.
Well, I think he overworked them, actually, to begin, Dan.
Yeah, he did.
He did, and he backed off because it was not having a positive effect. So I think, especially with veteran players, and I think that's a good way to go. I mean, you don't want to wear people down at practice week after week, and they've changed the rules about that as well. So I think he's still a good coach. I don't know why people, look at the winning that he's done here.
Oh, I love the guy. I love him. I love the way he talks.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the call. And thank you for being a first-time caller. Hope you're not a last-time caller. I think the discipline issue is something that has backfired on them. I think they've given some special treatment, only to expect an adult-like response and not gotten that from Antonio Brown. He's fully taken advantage of whatever they've been trying to do to him, and now everyone looks bad in the process. So line 4 we go. It's Bob in Indiana. Hello, Bob.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Bob.
Sure.
Hey, I want to talk some baseball rules. I know they're talking the DH in the National League maybe down the next year or two, which I'm totally against. But also the pitching where they bring a pitcher and he has to pitch at least 3 batters. Is that this year they're starting that?
No, and I don't like that anyway.
I don't either. Absolutely don't.
I think if you have a strategy and you have a left-hander, let's say, for example, the Pirates, they brought in Francisco Liriano, and if their plan was to use him only in specific instances against lefties, because if you look at his numbers last year against lefties, they were very good. You penalize the Pirates for bringing him in. Then he's got to stay in for 2 more batters, and let's say they're big right-hand power hitters, and he doesn't get them out. I don't think that's a fair way to go about business, actually.
Yeah, and then what if the guy he's bringing in lefty against the lefty, and then he fakes us all? I hurt my arm, I can't pitch anymore. You can do that, and then they can't say, well, you're faking it, and you have to pitch anyway. And if he is really not faking it, he can, actually cause severe injury if he actually did pull a muscle.
Yeah, I don't think that's a rule that they like. But as far as DH is concerned, are you pro or against it?
I'm totally against it. It takes a lot of the managerial skills away. You're just kind of, okay, throw got the bat. You're not really trying to work around a pitcher no more. I just do not like it at all.
All right, appreciate the opinion. Thanks very much. Let's go out to Brad in Duncansville. Hello, Bradley.
Hi, Bob. How are you guys?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I have a Penguin question and a Steeler question for you.
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, my Penguin question is, what do you think the Penguins will do at the NHL trade deadline, and what move do you think they'll make, and what was the Steelers? Do you think the 49ers will jump in on Brown and the Steelers get a draft pick, or what do you think they'll get back in return if he goes to the 49ers?
Well, I'll start with the 49ers. They don't have enough to give the Steelers, to be honest. And even if Antonio Brown wants to be a 49er, they have, I believe, the number 2 overall pick. They're not going to give that up for Antonio Brown. And beyond that, they don't have all that much. I look at a team like, again, with Oakland as a surplus of draft picks. They would like to use some of that to acquire some big-time talent that could help a guy like Derek Carr. So places like that, there are other places he could land. I think Miami needs a guy and he's from Miami, he lives in Miami, who can, help their quarterbacks. And why wouldn't you want an Antonio Brown if you can deal with what he else brings? And that's a risky maneuver, especially if you're going to inherit his contract or engage him in a new one, which I don't think many teams will. So with regard to the Penguins, I don't know. I mean, my big question, I really like what Casey DeSmith, and thank you for calling, Brad, has done as a backup goaltender. But Matt Murray, you can see how good he is when he's a big game goaltender. Every time there's something to be on the line, he seems to respond and be at his best. But he's also been injury riddled. And are you prepared to go into a postseason where he might get injured again? And is Casey DeSmith your best option? Casey DeSmith has earned his new contract. He's been really good. But is he good enough to be that guy in the postseason? That's a little bit of a risk. He may make a move there. Who knows? Aside from that, I don't know of anything else the Penguins really need at this point other than more consistency on their power play, special teams overall, and just a willingness to get to the puck in deep and work it, cycle it. They've done it well over the years. They haven't done it well consistently this year. Let's go to Jim in the South Hills. Hey, Jim, how are you?
Great, Bob. How about yourself?
Good, thanks. Appreciate you calling.
Great show. Just love it.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Steelers a little bit. You get so many phone calls that are negative about the Steelers that I don't think people take into account the history of the Steelers for the last 50 years. I guess what I call a lot of the loyal Steeler fans are spoiled. Okay. And we just, when you win 6 Super Bowls and you're constantly in the playoffs, I just, like the guy that called a little bit ago about Mike Tomlin, and geez, how hard it is to get a good coach, and the Rooneys are spectacular. They're solid as a rock. Mm-hmm. We're just so darn spoiled. I can't believe, I don't know the stats, but I can't believe there's another team in the NFL that has won more games over the last 50 years or is better than the Steelers over 50 years.
Well, I mean, yes, over that amount of time, and they had a rocky beginning, as you know, until Chuck Noll took over, until they had those outstanding drafts of the 70s. But, more recently, of course, it's been New England's dynasty, the way they've been consistent for the last 18 years. But, yeah, I think people around here have big expectations, and with that comes big disappointment if things don't work out the way they are supposed to. But by and large, this team is always, and I'm not going to rule them out for winning a division next year. A lot of people want to be bullish on Cleveland. Go ahead. But I still think they have if they do a good draft this year and spend some money on positions specifically of need like inside linebacker, unlike what they did last year, I think they could be right in the mix again. We have one tweet before I go to break. It's Meredith Leonard, one of our favorite tweeters, who says, a neurosurgeon makes around $600,000 a year. Bryce Harper does not deserve $40 million. No athlete does. The gentleman on the phone is right about your suit. Thank you, Meredith. I appreciate that. I will say this. It is a business. It's an entertainment business. If someone's willing to pay it, you can get it. More power to you. The fact that he turned down $300 million, though, strikes me of greed. How much more do you need? I mean, you want to me, with some of these guys, it's like a poker game. You know, you're trying to always, or bragging rights, be the best guy. You still, at $300 million a year, that would put you behind two guys only. I think Albert Pujols and certainly John Carlos Stanton. That's about it. Other than that, you're pretty well taken care of. Why would you turn that down? Anyway, we'll take a break. 412-575-2600. That's the number to call right here live on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, Pittsburgh CW.